This is the part I was telling you about here, that the Quillig that will be lit now by an Inuit elder.
No pressure from Morgan Grice, though.
No, yeah.
To play
yeah,
the fiddle
yeah.
in the Senate in front of the king, and most of the just old enough to vote this year, in front of all those prime ministers, the Supreme Court judges you see there right now shaking hands with the king. I mean, that's quite the audience at such a tender age to do so well.
Now the king just meeting, as David said there, with the Supreme, that is the Chief Justice, Richard Wagner, and the others. They always get invited to the throne speech and take that spot there in the middle of the chamber. I'm sure he'll make his way over to greet the former prime ministers as well. While this is happening, obviously, the usher of the Black Rod is on his way to the West Block, the House of Commons, where it is situated now, as the Centre Block is undergoing renovations for many, many years. There you go. There's some former Governor Generals, Adrienne Clarkson and her husband, John Ralston Saul. They were also at the swearing in of the new cabinet, so it's been a busy couple weeks for these people too. Michael Jean is there as well, former Governor General. David Johnston, another former Governor General there, with his wife, Sharon.
You also saw there too, Rosie, on the other side, behind the prime ministers. Margaret Trudeau was there, Emile Mulroney, as you mentioned, Kim Campbell.
Yep.
You also saw the former Speaker of the Senate, George Fury, and his wife Karen were there, and you saw Jeff Regan, former Speaker of the House of Commons, and his wife Kelly Regan, who I believe was Deputy Premier in Nova Scotia. I know she was in the cabinet in Nova Scotia. I worked with her on the Nova Scotia election special last fall. So you see people, who have held parliamentary office. George Fury, he aged out of the Senate, turning 75 and retired. And his son recently the former Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, Andrew Fury, just retired not that long ago to go back to practicing medicine. And, well, look, and because I know them, you can see Senator David Wells and Senator Fabian Manning from Newfoundland and Labrador there as well in the receiving line to speak to the King as he shakes hands with dignitaries on this side of the Senate.
Now everyone's realizing they should probably stand up if the King's standing in front of them. That's probably a good idea.
With someone wearing that many medals comes by, you get on your feet.
You generally
you don't
stand
stay
up.
Sitting if you can avoid it.
Now they're trying to corral him to make sure that he doesn't shake the hands of every single person on the chamber floor, as much as they might all like that. You can see the Queen, she is on the other side doing some of that handshaking as well. And on the left of your screen, that of course is West Block, where we are waiting for the usher to arrive shortly and give that knock on the door. But we should tell you that in the balcony there of the main foyer of the Senate, there were actually lots of MPs eventually when we saw them up close. So a lot of those MPs are already here, to your point, David, and will just make their way down.
Yeah, I saw Rob Oliphant, Randeep Sarai, I believe.
Conservative and Melissa Lantsman, there were a number of people there. So those people will just, maybe we won't have to wait for them to get here, I guess, in terms of trying to save time between when the usher is there and when things actually get started.
Well, I think for the sake of ceremony, we still have to wait for the official party that's there to get down, right? I think that is... That
and the usher has to come back, but cuts down a little bit of the time if the MPs are already there. These are various members of the Senate here that His Majesty is greeting. Be interesting to see if he makes his way to the other side where the former prime ministers are. That is where the Queen is, Queen Camilla. Talking to people on the other side. There's nothing like an event like this that I love, because you get to see former prime ministers in these, strange situations where Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau are suddenly sitting together.
Yeah, Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau are sitting together. Pierre Poilievre, we're told, is there. Also there. It's remarkable to think, here we are on the 27th of May, and Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau are not members of Parliament. Justin Trudeau is not the Prime Minister. He is in retirement. He is sitting next to, the person he beat in 2015 for that job as Prime Minister. And it shows the transition as it looks like the usher has arrived at the
Yep.
House of Commons.
Here's Greg Peters, the usher of the Black Rod, arriving now. We're going to go to that moment inside the House of Commons, or outside the doors of the House of Commons.
A message from His Majesty, the King of Canada. Le message de Sa Majesté, le Roi du Canada.
Okay, on the right of your screen there, you can see the King speaking with Neil Mulrooney, and beside her is Margaret Trudeau, who's accompanying her son, the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who knows, of course, the King well. Oh, there you see, big embrace from Margaret Trudeau. And on the left of your screen, the traditional part of the ceremony, where the usher of the Black Rod is being allowed into the House of Commons, on the floor of the House of Commons, as the messenger of the sovereign here, to deliver the message that he has been asked to deliver, that the MPs come to the Red Chamber for the throne speech, as the King on the right of your screen speaks with former Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper.
Mr. Speaker, it is the pleasure of His Majesty, the King of Canada, that this honorable House attend him immediately in the chamber of the Senate. Monsieur le Président, c'est le plaisir de Sa Majesté, le Roi du Canada, que cette honorable Chambre se rende immédiatement auprès de lui dans la Chambre du Sénat.
Okay, and that is the message delivered now by the usher of the Black Rod, who will make his way now back to the Red Chamber, where you can see the King is busy meeting and greeting various former politicians, the Premier of New Brunswick there in the red, the Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, who was speaking with David just last night.
I think that's Anthony Rota behind Wab Kinew. If I'm not mistaken there, is that him peeking over? I can't quite tell.
Yeah,
It looks like
I think
the former
it is.
Speaker of the
I think
House of
it is,
Commons.
yeah.
And you see Ranj Pillay, the
Yep.
Premier of Yukon, for
Up on the
another little while.
on the
a
fallback.
couple more weeks
Yeah.
yet before the new leader is chosen there, as he has announced that he will not be seeking re-election and will be leaving public life to go into. He's even talked about working with the Canadian Armed Forces in some capacity after he leaves the First Minister's table, Rosie.
There's some Lieutenant Governors, Anita Neville, I happen to know, Lieutenant General of Manitoba, and others. I don't know if you recognize any of those people there, Carolyn?
Well, it's interesting that we're seeing such an extensive walkabout in the chamber by King Charles III and Queen Camilla, and a few people seem to be admiring Queen Camilla's brooch from the Queen's Own Rifles, where she is Colonel-in-Chief. And now we see King Charles greeting Supreme Court justices, and of course there's former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Margaret Trudeau and Stephen Harper.
Yeah, we saw Mike Savage as well, the recently appointed Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia. Did a lot. He was the mayor of Halifax, worked with the Canadian Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
I mean,
So-
yeah, this is the first public sighting of Justin Trudeau since he was out during the election campaign once, but this is really
Yeah,
his
Papineau.
first public event since leaving the job as Prime Minister, and just seeing him there making small talk with Stephen Harper is pretty remarkable for people that enjoy politics like us, David. And of course, Margaret Trudeau would have met the King many times before as Prince with her former husband, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who was here in 1977, of course, when the Queen delivered the throne speech then.
It is interesting how Justin Trudeau went from being so public-facing and ever-present
Yes.
in Canadian politics, certainly throughout COVID and, in the events leading up to his the announcement of his resignation on the 6th of January, and then I guess his formal resignation about around March 9th, when Mark Carney won the leadership. It was shortly around then that he left that he left as leader and prime minister, and then really just vanished from the public eye. You could argue that was doing the new prime minister kind of a solid during the election campaign of removing some of whatever pent-up tension and resentment had been there. There's also just a transition back to normal private life. Like when you're born, the son of a prime minister, and raised the way he's raised, I don't know if you ever truly have a normal private life, because his experience in some ways is not dissimilar to a royal, right? And that you are born into the public eye and grow up in the public eye and continue in the public eye in a way that Stephen R. Harper or Kim Campbell can drift away.
Michael Jean is dragging the King across the chamber floor by his hand to introduce him to someone. It's the head of the AFN.
Cindy Woodhouse,
Cindy
Neepanak,
Woodhouse.
the national chief
perhaps
there.
being worth dragged over for, but we'll see how that goes over, given what you've all said about
If you were the
engaging.
sovereign's representative, do you
Maybe
get
you're allowed
a
to.
one touch per visit? Is
Maybe
that how
you're
it
allowed
works? You can drag them along? I don't know.
Well, we can see there's a warm family atmosphere here, as is often the case at Commonwealth heads of government meetings as well, that a certain informality prevails when the monarch is in the Commonwealth realms.
Yeah. And the Prime Minister also there mingling on the floor with the Supreme Court justices, not something that you see every day either, given how our powers are divided in this country. We are at this stage waiting for the usher of the Black Rod to come back. Ashley Burke is inside the Senate, where MPs are also waiting, Ashley, to try and get a good spot there at the bar, at the door of the Red Chamber, to see what they can see and hear.
Exactly, Rosie. There are dozens of MPs that are lined up behind me of all political stripes down the hallway here, and they're going to be greeted by the new Speaker of the House of Commons, who's going to walk down this red carpet soon and up to the Senate doors there. And I was just speaking to the Finance Minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne. He described this as a great day. He said that all eyes are on Canada right now, and that this sends a strong message to the world today. Unfortunately, we can't talk to any of the MPs right now until that procession happens. They're told to stay behind the red carpet, but certainly the atmosphere here today is really positive. They're really looking forward to hearing the speech from the throne, and we're expecting some of them to speak to us afterwards about what this symbolizes and what this says, including to the U.S.